The candlelight flickered across the private dining room at Marcella's, the most exclusive restaurant in the city. My mother sat at the head of the table, radiant in her burgundy dress, surrounded by family who had gathered to celebrate her 60th birthday. I sat at the far end as I always did, in my simple black dress and minimal jewelry. "Another toast," my brother-in-law announced, raising his glass. "To Margaret, the most amazing mother-in-law a guy could ask for." Everyone cheered. My sister Victoria beamed beside him, her diamond tennis bracelet catching the light. She'd made sure everyone noticed it when she arrived. "And let's not forget," Victoria added, her voice carrying that particular tone she reserved for these family gatherings. "Mom raised 3 kids, but look how different we all turned out." Her eyes landed on me. "Some of us became successful lawyers." She gestured to herself. "Some became doctors." She nodded at our brother Marcus. "And some..." She paused dramatically. "Well, some of us are still figuring things out." Polite laughter rippled around the table. I took a sip of water and said nothing. "Victoria, don't be mean," Mom said, but she was smiling. "Emma is doing her best." "Her best at what, exactly?" Marcus chimed in. He'd had 3 glasses of wine already. "She works from home doing... what is it again, Em? Consulting." "Something like that," I replied calmly. "Consulting," Victoria scoffed. "That's what people say when they don't have a real job." She turned to her husband. "Babe, didn't your firm just hire consultants at 6 figures?" "7 actually," he corrected. "But those are real consultants. From top firms. Not whatever Emma does on her laptop." My father cleared his throat uncomfortably but said nothing. He never did. "I'm just worried about you, Em," Victoria continued, her voice dripping with false concern. "You're 29 years old. You drive a 10-year-old Honda. You live in that tiny apartment in the old part of town. When are you going to get serious about your life?" "Victoria," Mom said again, but there was no real rebuke in it. "I'm being honest, Mom. Someone has to be." Victoria leaned forward. "Emma, I love you, but you need to hear this. At least I have a real career. I have a 401k. I have health insurance. I have a future." She gestured around the table. "We all do. But you're still living like a college student." "She has a point," Marcus added. "I mean, look at this dinner. Victoria paid for this private room. I'm covering the wine. Mom and Dad handled the deposit. What did you contribute, Em?" I smiled. "I'm just happy to be here." "That's not an answer," Victoria pressed. "You never contribute to anything. Every holiday, every birthday, every family event, you show up empty-handed or with some tiny gesture and we all have to cover for you." "We don't mind," Mom said, but her tone suggested otherwise. "I mind," Victoria said. "I work 60-hour weeks at my firm. Marcus works in surgery. We're tired, Mom. We're stressed. And then we see Emma just coasting through life with her consulting and her I'm happy attitude, and it's insulting." "Insulting to what?" I asked quietly. "To those of us who actually worked hard." Victoria's voice rose. "I went to law school. I clerked for a judge. I made partner in 8 years. Marcus spent a decade in medical training. What have you done? What do you have to show for your life?" The table had gone quiet. Even the servers had retreated. "I have enough," I said. "Enough." Victoria laughed, and it wasn't kind. "You have enough. You couldn't afford to eat at this restaurant on your own. Do you know what a meal here costs?" "I have some idea." "Really?" "Because the deposit alone for this room was $5,000. The prix-fixe menu is $400 per person. The wine Marcus ordered? $800 a bottle. And we ordered 3. She leaned back in her chair. "So please enlighten me. Could you afford this dinner?" Everyone was staring at me now. Mom looked embarrassed. Dad studied his plate. Marcus smirked into his wine glass. "Probably not on my own," I admitted. "Exactly." Victoria nodded triumphantly. "So maybe show some gratitude instead of just sitting there acting like you belong at the same table as people who actually made something of themselves." I set down my napkin slowly. "If you'll excuse me, I need to make a phone call." "Of course you do," Victoria muttered. "Probably some emergency with your little laptop business." I walked out of the private dining room into the main restaurant area. The Saturday night crowd was in full swing, well-dressed patrons, attentive servers, the elegant atmosphere that had made Marcella's a city landmark for the past 40 years. I pulled out my phone and made a call. "Good evening, Ms. Rivera," a familiar voice answered. "Is everything all right with your family's dinner?" "Hello, David," I said to the general manager. "I'm afraid we need to make a change." "Of course. What can I do for you?" "Cancel the reservation for the Taurus party. Effective immediately." There was a pause. "Ma'am, are you certain? The dinner is already underway." "I'm certain. And the bill so far? It's already accumulated too." "I'm aware. Split it. Send my parents the check for their meals only. Everyone else pays their own." Another pause. "Ms. Rivera, this is unusual. May I ask? David, whose name is on the deed to this building?" "Yours, ma'am." "And whose signature is on your paycheck?" "Yours, ma'am." "Then please do as I asked." "Right away, Ms. Rivera. I'll have the shift manager handle it personally." I hung up and stood for a moment in the hallway watching the restaurant operate. The gleaming bar, the efficient staff, the satisfied customers. I'd bought Marcella's 3 years ago when the original owners wanted to retire. It was the first of 12 restaurant and hospitality properties I'd acquired and still my favorite. When I walked back into the private dining room, Victoria was in the middle of another story about a case she'd won. "And the judge actually cited my brief in his ruling," she was saying. "My senior partner said it was the most impressive work he'd seen from a junior associate in years." I slid back into my seat quietly. "Feel better?" Marcus asked sarcastically. "Important business call?" "Something like that," I replied. Victoria barely paused. "Anyway, Mom, I was thinking for your 61st next year maybe we could rent out that new rooftop place downtown. I've heard it's even more exclusive than here." "This place is perfect," Mom said. "I love Marcella's. We've been coming here since you kids were little." "Speaking of which," Marcus said, "we should probably figure out the check soon. I have early rounds tomorrow." "I'll handle it," Victoria announced. "I treat Mom. You deserve the best." That's when David appeared in the doorway. He wasn't alone. The evening shift manager, Patricia, stood beside him. Both wore expressions of professional courtesy, but I could see the tension in David's shoulders. "Excuse me," David said, his voice polite but firm. "I'm terribly sorry to interrupt, but there's been an issue with the reservation." Victoria frowned. "What kind of issue?" "I made this reservation 3 months ago." "Yes, Miss Torres, we have that on file. However, the reservation has been cancelled." "Cancelled?" Victoria's face flushed. "By whom?" "By the owner of the establishment." The table erupted in confused murmurs. "That's ridiculous," Victoria said, standing up. "You can't cancel a reservation in the middle of dinner. We're celebrating my mother's birthday." "I understand and I sincerely apologize for the disruption," David continued. "However, the owner's instructions were quite clear. The reservation for the Taurus party is terminated effective immediately." "This is unacceptable." Victoria's voice rose. "Do you know who I am? I'm a partner at Morrison, Blake and Associates. I will sue this restaurant for breach of contract." "That is certainly your prerogative, ma'am," David replied calmly. "Why would the owner cancel our reservation?" Mom asked, bewildered. "We've been loyal customers for decades." Patricia stepped forward with a leather portfolio. "Mrs. Torres, we've separated the checks as requested. This is for you and Mr. Torres, your meals only. The total is $847. "As requested by whom?" Dad asked. "By the owner," Patricia repeated. Victoria snatched another bill from Patricia's hand. "And this?" "That's for you, Miss Torres. Your meal, your husband's meal and your portion of the wine. $3,240. Victoria's face went white then red. "This is outrageous. Who is the owner? I demand to speak to them immediately." David's eyes flickered to me for just a fraction of a second. "The owner prefers to remain private in these matters." Marcus grabbed his own bill. $2,890? For what? "I had the fish. And 3 glasses of the Chateau Margaux, sir. At $310 per glass." "Well, I'm not paying this," Victoria announced. "This is clearly a mistake. Some computer error. The owner wouldn't deliberately sabotage a 60th birthday celebration." "I assure you, Miss Torres, there is no error," David said. I took a sip of my water and watched. Then get the owner on the phone, Victoria demanded. Right now. I want to speak to them directly. The owner is currently unavailable, David replied. Unavailable? It's 8:30 on a Saturday night. They own a restaurant. They should be available. Nevertheless, David said, and his voice had taken on a subtle edge, the owner's decision is final. The reservation is cancelled. You're welcome to finish your current courses, but after that I must ask you to settle your individual bills and vacate the private dining room. We have another party scheduled. We booked this room until 10 p.m. Victoria practically shouted. That booking was made under the Torres party reservation, Patricia explained, which, as we've mentioned, has been cancelled. Mom was crying softly now. I don't understand. Why is this happening? This is discrimination, Victoria said. We'll sue for emotional distress for breach of contract for. Ms. Torres, David interrupted, his patience clearly wearing thin. You're welcome to pursue whatever legal action you feel is warranted. However, this is private property and the owner has the right to refuse service. Now, will you be paying with credit card or? I want to see the owner, Victoria insisted. Face to face. Now. David glanced at me again. I gave the smallest shake of my head. I'm afraid that's not possible, David said. Not possible or not convenient? Marcus interjected. This is absurd. Victoria, call your firm. We'll get an injunction or something. On a Saturday night? Victoria was frantically scrolling through her phone. This is. I stood up quietly. All eyes turned to me. Emma, where are you going? Mom asked through her tears. Home, I said simply. Now. Victoria snapped. You're leaving now? In the middle of this disaster. It seems like the party's over, I replied. This is your fault somehow, isn't it? Victoria's eyes narrowed. You did something. You must have. This is too coincidental. What would I have done? I asked calmly. I don't know, but I'll find out. Victoria turned back to David. This woman. My sister. Did you see her make a phone call about 20 minutes ago? I see many guests make phone calls, ma'am, David replied diplomatically. She did something, Victoria insisted. She said something to someone and now suddenly we're being thrown out? That's not a coincidence. Victoria, I said quietly, I think you're upset and looking for someone to blame. Don't you dare patronize me. Victoria stepped closer. You've been sitting there all night with that smug little smile while I tried to help you, tried to give you advice about your pathetic life, and now? You weren't trying to help me, I interrupted. You were trying to humiliate me. The room went silent. In front of our entire family, I continued, my voice still calm, you called me broke. You called my career fake. You mocked my car, my apartment, my life choices. You did everything you could to make me feel small. Because you needed to hear it, Victoria said, but some of the fire had gone out of her voice. No, because it made you feel big. I picked up my purse. You've spent so long competing with me, Victoria. I've never understood why. Competing with you? Victoria laughed bitterly. You have to have something worth taking to be competition. I smiled. It wasn't a nice smile. David, I've changed my mind. You can tell them. David straightened. Are you certain, Ms. Rivera? The use of my name, my real name, not my mother's maiden name that the rest of the family used, made everyone freeze. Ms. Rivera? Marcus repeated. Who's Ms. Rivera? I am, I said. Emma Rivera. I took my father's mother's name when I turned 18. For business purposes. What business? Victoria asked, but her voice had changed. I looked at David. Tell them. David cleared his throat. Ladies and gentlemen, allow me to properly introduce Emma Rivera, the sole owner of Rivera Hospitality Group. Ms. Rivera owns this restaurant, Marcella's, along with 11 other dining and entertainment establishments in the city. She purchased Marcella's in 2021 for $8.4 million and has since expanded her portfolio to a total valuation of approximately $127 million. The silence was deafening. That's impossible, Victoria whispered. The impossible part, I said, was listening to you tell me I couldn't afford to eat here. I turned to David. What's the average check for a party this size? With the wine selections they made? Approximately $4,800, Ms. Rivera. And how many dinners like that could I afford? At your current net worth? David did the math quickly. Approximately 26,000 of them, ma'am. Victoria sat down heavily. Marcus's wine glass slipped from his hand, shattering on the floor. Mom just stared at me, her mouth open. I don't understand, Dad said finally. Emma, is this true? Every word, I confirmed. But how? We thought you were barely scraping by. I know what you thought, I said. I know what you all thought. That I was the family failure. The one who couldn't get her life together. The charity case you all had to support. We were trying to help you, Mom said weakly. No, you weren't. I kept my voice gentle, but the words were firm. You were trying to fix me because my success didn't look like Victoria's or Marcus's. I didn't have the right job title or the right car or the right apartment in the right neighborhood. So you assumed I was struggling. But your apartment, Victoria said. That tiny place. Is in a building I own, I finished. I bought it for $2.3 million 4 years ago. I live in the smallest unit because I don't need much space. The other 11 units are rented out. The car? Marcus asked faintly. Paid off. I prefer it to a new one. Less maintenance, better reliability, and it doesn't attract attention. I paused. I don't like attention, in case you haven't noticed. Why didn't you tell us? Mom asked, tears streaming down her face. I tried, I said quietly. 3 years ago when I bought my first property. Do you remember? I called you Dad so excited. I wanted to share my success with you. Dad's face crumpled. The rental property. You said you'd bought a rental property. A 12-unit apartment building, I corrected. But you laughed. You said I was being impulsive. That I didn't know what I was doing. That I should have consulted with Victoria first about the legal aspects, and with Marcus about the financial wisdom of such a decision. We were concerned, Dad said. You were dismissive, I replied. So I stopped telling you things. I built my business quietly. I made my money quietly. I lived my life quietly. And I let you all believe whatever you wanted to believe. Victoria was shaking her head. This doesn't make sense. If you're so successful, why do you dress like that? He gestured at my simple outfit. Like what? Like someone who doesn't need to prove anything to anyone. I shrugged. I dress comfortably. I live simply. I enjoy my work. I don't need a designer bag or a luxury car to feel successful. But the way you let us talk to you, Marcus said. The things we said tonight were revealing, I finished. You showed me exactly what you think of people you consider beneath you. You talked to me the way you probably talk to waiters and baristas and anyone else you think isn't worth your respect. Patricia had quietly cleaned up the broken glass. Now she stood by David, watching the family drama unfold with professional detachment. So this whole thing, Victoria said slowly, canceling the reservation, splitting the checks, that was you? Punishing us. Not punishing, I corrected. Teaching. You wanted to know what I contribute? I was contributing this entire meal. The restaurant. The ambience. The stuff. The private room. All of it. I was giving you the gift of a beautiful evening in a place I created, and you spent it mocking me for being poor. We didn't know, Mom sobbed. You didn't ask, I said. In 3 years, not one of you asked me about my business. Not one of you asked to see my apartment. Not one of you showed any genuine interest in my life beyond judging it for not matching yours. I walked toward the door, then paused. For the record, I was going to gift Mom this entire evening. The room, the meals, the wine, all of it. My birthday present to her. But then Victoria started talking and I realized something. You don't want a daughter who's successful in her own way. You want a daughter who's successful in your way. And I'm not interested in being that person anymore. Emma, wait, Dad said, standing. Please. Let's talk about this. We can, I agreed. When you're ready to talk to me like an equal instead of a project. When you're ready to respect my choices even if they're different from yours. When you're ready to see me for who I am, not who you wish I was. I looked at my mother. Happy birthday, Mom. I'm sorry it ended like this. But I'm not sorry for who I've become. David held the door open for me. As I walked past, he murmured, Your car is being brought around, Ms. Rivera. Thank you, David. And thank you for handling that with such grace. Of course, ma'am. Though if I may say so, I wish you'd let me tell them sooner. Watching Miss Torres call you broke while sitting in your restaurant was difficult. I smiled. It was necessary. Sometimes people need to reveal who they are before they can understand what they've done. I walked through the main dining room of Marcella's, past the elegant bar I'd had refinished last year, past the wine display I'd personally curated, past the subtle updates and improvements I'd made to honor the restaurant's legacy while securing its future. None of my family knew that I'd saved this place from bankruptcy. None of them knew that I'd kept every original staff member employed, given them raises and better benefits, and turned Marcella's from a struggling legacy business into one of the most profitable restaurants in the city. They didn't know because they'd never asked. Outside, my 10-year-old Honda was indeed waiting, looking humble and ordinary next to the parade of luxury cars in the valet line. I tipped the valet, generously as always, and drove home to my tiny apartment in my building. The next morning my phone started ringing at 7 a.m. Victoria. I declined the call. Then Marcus. Declined. That. Victoria again. I turned my phone on silent and made myself breakfast. By noon I had 43 missed calls and 16 voicemails. I listened to the first few. Victoria. Emma, we need to talk. I may have overreacted last night. Call me back. Marcus. And this is crazy. Can we just meet for coffee? We should discuss things. Mom, sweetheart, I'm so confused and hurt. Please call me. I need to understand. Dad, Emma, I think we all said things we regret. Your mother is very upset. Please come by the house. I deleted them all and went for a walk. 3 days later I received a formal letter via courier. Victoria, in full lawyer mode, requesting a family meeting to discuss the situation and reach an amicable understanding. The letter was professionally written and carefully worded, probably reviewed by 3 of her colleagues. I texted back, no thank you. 4 days after that Marcus showed up at Marcella's. David called me from the restaurant, his voice apologetic. Ms. Rivera, your brother is here. He's insisting he needs to speak with you. He's not causing a scene, but he's refusing to leave until you come. Tell him I'm not available. I've told him that, ma'am. He's ordered dinner and says he'll wait. I sighed. Fine. I'll be there in 20 minutes. When I arrived, Marcus was sitting at a table by the window, looking uncomfortable in his business casual attire. He stood when he saw me. Thank you for coming. I didn't come for you, I said, sitting down. I came because you were bothering my staff. He winced. Right. Of course. He sat back down. Look, I've been thinking a lot about what happened. About what we said to you. And we were wrong. I was wrong. We had no right to talk to you like that. You're correct. He waited like he expected more. When I said nothing, he continued. I'm sorry, really. I'm sorry we made assumptions. I'm sorry we didn't ask about your life. I'm sorry we treated you like a failure. Okay. He looked confused. That's it? Just okay. What do you want me to say, Marcus? I don't know. That you forgive me. That we can move past this. He ran a hand through his hair. Mom's a wreck. She's been crying for days. Victoria's in denial. She keeps insisting there must be some mistake, that maybe you're lying or exaggerating. Dad's just quiet, you know how he gets. The whole family is falling apart. That sounds difficult, I said neutrally. Come on, don't be like this. His voice took on a pleading tone. We're family. Are we? I asked. Because families usually respect each other, support each other, listen to each other. We haven't done any of that in years. So what, you're just cutting us off? Over one bad night? It wasn't one bad night, Marcus. Kept my voice level. It was years of small dismissals. Years of being the punchline. Years of watching you and Victoria compete to see who could be the most successful while treating me like the family embarrassment. We didn't. He stopped. Hey, maybe we did. But we didn't know him. We didn't know you were doing so well. Why didn't you know? I leaned forward. I told Dad 3 years ago about my first property. He shut me down. I mentioned my business to Mom 2 years ago. She changed the subject to ask if I was dating anyone. Every time I tried to share something with this family, you all made it clear that unless I was doing things your way, law degree, medical degree, corporate job, fancy car, it didn't matter. Marcus was quiet for a long moment. You're right, he said finally. We did do that. I did do that. He looked up at me. I'm sorry, Emma. Truly. I'm asking for a chance to do better. Why? I asked. Why do you want to do better now? Because you're my sister. Because I miss you. Because... He stopped and I could see him struggle with honesty. Because I'm ashamed of who I was that night. Of who I've been for years. You called it M. We talk to people we consider beneath us like they don't matter. And we did that to you. My own sister. I studied his face. He looked tired. Sincere. Maybe even genuinely regretful. I can't speak for Victoria or my parents, I said slowly. But I appreciate your apology, Marcus. Thank you. So we're good. No, I said gently. We're not good. But maybe, eventually we could be. What do you need? He asked. Tell me what I can do. Nothing right now. I need time. And I need to see that this isn't just guilt talking. That you actually mean it. I stood up. Go home, Marcus. Be with your family. Think about the kind of brother you want to be. And maybe in a few months we can try coffee. A few months. He looked stricken. You spent years treating me like a failure, Marcus. I'm going to need more than one apology dinner to trust you again. I walked away, leaving him sitting alone at the table in my restaurant. Over the next month, the attempts at contact continued but became less frequent. Victoria sent a fruit basket to my apartment building. The irony wasn't lost on me. Mom sent a long handwritten letter that I read but didn't answer. Dad left a voicemail saying simply, I'm proud of you, Emma. I should have said that years ago. I hope someday you'll let me say it to your face. I wasn't ready yet. Instead, I focused on my business. I closed a deal on a 13th property, a historic building downtown that would become a boutique hotel. I promoted David to regional manager across all my restaurants. I started a scholarship program for hospitality workers who wanted to pursue business degrees. I built my empire quietly as I always had. But this time I built it without the weight of my family's disappointment pressing down on me. 6 weeks after Mom's birthday, I received an invitation in the mail. Not a text, not an email, a proper printed invitation on heavy cardstock. You are invited to a small gathering at the home of Robert and Margaret Torres. We would be honored by your presence. No agenda. No expectations. Just a chance to see you. With love and respect, your family. I held the invitation for a long time, feeling its weight in my hands. Then I picked up my phone and texted Mom, I'll be there. Because here's what I'd learned in those 6 weeks. Success isn't just about the money you make or the empire you build. It's about knowing your worth. It's about refusing to shrink yourself to fit someone else's expectations. It's about walking away from people who diminish you even if those people are family. But it's also about leaving the door open, just a crack, for people to change. For relationships to heal. For families to learn to see each other clearly for the first time. I wasn't ready to forget what had happened at Marcella's. But maybe eventually I'd be ready to forgive. Maybe.